So we're going to be talking about the CX built-in in this lesson. CX built-in is one of the most robust features that WFA has out of the box. It supplies an incredible amount of information about all the things happening inside of 5.9. Having said that, in the event that you're in a data-based charging model for WFA, it can also be one of the most expensive. So you need to be very careful with how you use it and set this up. You can turn certain features off and only allow certain ones in, but it's just important to understand how much data it can produce and how to control that if you need to. So the CX built-in is sending a lot of events into WFA automatically. It is very similar, or it seems a lot like ESS, which is Event Subscription Services. A common misconception is that it is ESS. It's not directly ESS. It just gets the same information as ESS does. So it's going to be the same event, same metadata, everything available to it. It's not something that data goes to ESS and then gets forwarded into WFA in some way. WFA just gets events pushed to it the same way ESS does and then can push it into here. So I'm going to actually pull up to get an explanation of like the different events that are available in here. And to, I guess, to back up a step so you understand, CX built-in is all these different events in happening in the 5.9 environment, such as, getting phone calls, configuration information, a lot of different events in here, all can get information delivered to automatically once it happens. So if we take a look, and I say it's very similar, or like almost one-to-one with ESS, if you go into the documentation to talk about, you know, ESS events, it's going to be basically the exact same information going into WFA. So you see agent-driven events, config events, interaction events, and user events. So as you look, any of these should be in WFA. I'm not going to say that every single one is in the CX built-in for WFA, but a majority of these, if not all of these, should be in there. So, but there's a chance that, newly built ones or maybe ones that don't apply anymore maybe aren't in there, but you should be able to rely on this information as a sort of guide on the information that you'd get from all of these. But any of these things happening, you will get an event sent in. So let's take a look at this. You don't need to configure this. It is an out-of-box connection, just like the Wendo built-in is, but also understand that the CX built-in is only available on the admin console version of WFA. So when you log into admin console, there's a launcher for WFA. CX built-in will already be in there, already start delivering events. So having said that, if you need to control that, you need to understand this one key factor. So once you log in here, and we'll go into this, there's only a root stream available out of the box. So if you go in here, you'll see ignore events. And this allows you, everything's going to come flying in here. So if you need to shut this off, just simply say dot asterisk as a regular expression and then save it and hit enter after this so it shows like this and hit save. That will turn off all the events from coming in. And you can also, there's certain patterns of the events coming through that you can go in and say, hey, I don't want these events coming through. And you can just, well, those aren't real events, but I just want you to show that you can sit there and add to a list of events to ignore. And there's also a regular expression that would basically allow you to, I have a lot of customers that only want to see disposition events. You can configure this to say, basically ignore everything except this one event or these two or three events. So just use regular expressions in here to say which ones you want, or you can just hard code it and hit enter and it'll ignore those events moving forward so you don't get charged for them. Or there's certain events that maybe you just don't want to see in your logs as you're trying to look through it. It just kind of clouds things up. So you want those out of there, you can do that. So to get an idea of what you're going to see here, we're going to go into this root stream. I'm going to click here. And from the last 60 minutes, it's going to show all these events. So you see login attempts. That's probably like an API login, possibly. But what I want to show you is before this started, I just put in a call to an agent. It was just one call, and you look in here, so here's a call ended event. You get all the attached variables in this one, different metadata for it. And what I want to get out of here is the interaction ID. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to say over the last 60 minutes, and just look over the last 60 minutes, 503 events. I don't even have anyone. I have like one agent logged into this right now, and it's already 503 events that are coming through in the last 60 minutes. So I'm going to pull this up. There we go. Now it's populating. So you can look. This is one phone call that came in through the IVR, delivered to an agent, and dispositioned quickly. 47 events down here were delivered into the CX built-in. So you get some kind of idea of how much data comes into this, but you also see how much data is available here. So if I just go to the beginning of this, you get a create an event, an interaction event, the call connected, and then all of these has different, it's not always the same. Each one has different metadata that it delivers inside of here. But you get the variables, the session IDs, call IDs, campaigns, all the different ones that are available at the time. And then see enter IVR, the modules it's going through, even user inputs in here. Campaign, menu, number of attempts, user inputs. You can see I hit 2 in the menu. That's listed in here. And then once it gets to enters the queue, enters ACD, it was offered to an agent, the recording started, transfer to that agent was completed from the IVR, it exited out, exited the IVR, it was accepted, assigned to an agent, contact was updated, agent ended the call, agent dispositioned the call. So there is one where again, you get all the variables that were populated as part of that. You get campaign, you get agent info, different header information, disposition information, all these different bits of information inside of here. And so just some perspective, like I said, you can see it's 47 events just for that one. So you can only imagine, you know, a domain that has, you know, hundreds of calls going on at any time, how many events. So that data can add up quickly. So that's why we want to stress to be very careful on how you do this. But the really cool part is that you get a lot more information than what you get out of just regular VCC. And honestly, this was part of this was intended to essentially replace like VCC connectors because you can do so much more and you can already trigger the events. This is on our side. This is a 5.9 system. So those events get triggered. We don't have to worry about, you know, agents, internet connection destroying a VCC connector call or something. Um, this will all come from our system and it loads quickly and it works quickly. So it's an amazing, amazing tool, but you just got to understand how much it's pushing out. So just be very careful on the data model that we're only getting the pieces here that you want, but you get some perspective here on how much it can deliver in all the different pieces. So we get access to so much more information and events and things that happen in the environment than we ever did before. So that's what makes it such a great tool. So now that we have that, um, and just so you catch, you can see all the events coming in at any time within here if you want to see, especially if you're looking to test your reactions and things, come in here, you know, perform whatever actions you want to on the environment, and then come in and find the call, and you can see all the events that were produced for that and see all the metadata as part of that, so you know what to select in there. So let's take a look at, let's bring that back up, and let's just look at one of these and say, let's look at disposition, okay? So let's say we want to see what information we have. So disposition info and name, no disposition. So let's concentrate on that, okay? So if we go in and we build a reaction, an event, CX built-in. And you can see all of these different events that can happen that you can trigger a reaction on. So there is a ton in here. So let's go to the disposition event. So understand there's differences. These symbols have, these icons have different meanings. So, disposition added is more of a configuration. You can see config change event. That's not a disposition call. That's a change to a disposition in that case, or in this case, a disposition added. So let's say disposition, and this is going to send for everything. So we're going to put in the disposition info, and it was name matches no disposition. So in this case, let's just do a Slack message. And we'll say training disposition. My name. Call ID. Interaction ID. Turn it on. So let's go ahead and make a test call. At this position. You can easily see that message in there. That. Refresh if it looks like that. And there you can see all the different metadata that comes in from this. This is a real simple example, but again, so many events that can come through. So that's how the CX built-in works. There's one other thing that's a part of this that isn't ready out of the box. So we will walk through that now. If you go into the CX built-in, you'll actually see actions in here. This, to be clear, these aren't actions that can be taken out of the box. These were actions that were added to allow us to use the Supervisor REST API. So that way we don't have to code all the individual calls within WFA. This allows WFA to make these supervisor calls. So that means that we need to create a supervisor, and understand this consumes a supervisor license, but we need to create a supervisor login for this so that it can log that supervisor in and allow us to run these things. So if I go back here, I'm gonna go to webhooks. This is already built in here, so you can see I've already built this out. So get agents. You can see that no valid enabled supervisor credentials are found in here. So we can't run this until we set this up. So how do we set it up? Go into, actually, the first thing we're going to do is we need to create a user. So I'm actually going to just, since I know this one already has everything we need here, I'm going to take WFA user and say WFA underscore supervisor at SME. Okay, uncheck these so we don't have to worry about the questions. Okay, now that's created. Let's go back here. We're going to go down to settings. Down here you see 5.9 REST API, so you can see this allows us to do these actions. So here we're going to say WFA underscore soup at SME, US region, password, save. Now that should be enabled. It could take a minute for everything to sort of get the supervisor logged in. So I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back when everything is in order. We're back. Now we can go back into connections. I'm just going to go to the webhook helper so you can see actions. And let's just get agents. There's no input for this one. And you see now these work. So you get this JSON payload of output that you would get from making this get agents call. So once you have that supervisor login created and attached to this and it's all fully logged in, you can start using the actions that are available inside of the CX built-in connection. I also wanted to mention that there is one user stream that can be created for this. And actually, I'm going to need to get skill information. And go back to streams. If I click plus, there is an API call for the Supervisor REST API that gets an ACD snapshot, which populates information for ACD queues. So we're going to call this one customer service, and skill ID is 2. And we're going to say yes here. So stream name, the skill ID. So that is a number, not the name of the skill itself. An interval is how many seconds that you'd want to refresh this. So it looks like 2 minutes here, so 120 seconds. Convert agent ID, whether you want it true if the agent ID should be converted to usernames. That might make it so you can see it better and understand it better. And then we'll put that in there, and then you can create this. And what this does is you can name certain queues in here, and it'll track those particular skills and update this information. Go in here. It's offline currently. So it's going to take a little bit for it to get online. But if you look, you'll see those settings, and then you see active agents, agents logged in, agents not ready, agents on call. It's going to track this for each individual skill that you program in here. So you can custom build these based on skill IDs, and it'll periodically, whatever your interval is, go out and track this information and populate this. So that would come into play then based on events. So you could then track these states as part of a reaction. So that's a CX built-in. Really, really great feature. Just got to keep track of the data. If it's a data-driven model, make sure that you are turning it off or just using the ones that you need. So because it produces a lot of events, but it also produces a ton of information. It's a very useful tool.